So the news is full of stories about the hacked Ashley Madison website. Most everybody has probably figured out now that AshleyMadison.com was a website for people who are looking to have an affair. And it was hacked. These hackers committed a crime by doing that and committed innumerable crimes by disseminating this information publicly. And some of that information included credit card information. And so you have state and federal laws that have been violated. And if the people that hacked this site and released this information are ever found and arrested, they're going to spend a lot of time in prison. So with that out of the way, though, a lot of people are looking through this data. And it is going to, if not already, cause a lot of divorces. So how does the Ashley Madison information come into play under Alabama divorce law? Well, really and truly, it's not going to have much effect in the courtroom at all. No one is going to be able to properly introduce a page of this data into court because it's hearsay. It's unverifiable. You're not going to be able to subpoena the hacker into court to authenticate this information. You're not going to be able to bring in Ashley Madison to verify hacked information that somebody put together. It's not going to work that way. What is happening is that people are finding the names of spouses on this data, and it's causing the breakdown in marriages. And if you're in a divorce case and you're answering discovery, or you're in a trial and you're asked a question, did you have an Ashley Madison account? Of course, if people really did, and they're honest, and they figure that there is other ways to verify this information by getting credit card data from the credit card company, then they're going to admit that. Or simply when they're confronted by a spouse who may have seen their name, address, credit card information on this data release, may confront them and ask them if they've been cheating. And so it's probably going to cause a lot of divorces. But it in and itself is not evidence of adultery. It's not good that anybody had an account, and just because they had an account, is a problem in any marriage. But does that equate to proving adultery in Alabama? No, it doesn't. To prove adultery in Alabama, politely, you have to prove a physical relationship to actually prove adultery. Now, because this is a civil case, you can prove that occurred through circumstantial evidence. You don't have to have a video. But still, you've got to have enough circumstantial evidence to convince a judge. Well, let's say that you take this Ashley Madison data and you confront your spouse, or you hire a private investigator, you do the things, and you find substantial evidence that would convince a court, and you can prove adultery, or they admit to it. What does that mean in a divorce case in Alabama? Well, a lot of the times it's not going to have a huge effect in what happens with the property division between married spouses. That's not to say that our courts are condoning adultery or condoning this kind of behavior, being on websites trying to set up an affair, but the judges are there to try to solve the problem of how do you untangle people's affairs when their marriage breaks down. And unless an affair was somehow done in front of children, or unless you had really egregious conduct, it's not going to move that needle in terms of where the property division occurs too much. It will have an effect if you can prove adultery. It will have an effect with most judges, assuming that the other side has not committed any type of misconduct. But it's not going to move it a whole lot. Now, there are other types of misconduct in a marriage, especially like physical abuse, and that's a whole nother ballgame. And that can have serious effects over child custody, property division, alimony, payment of attorney's fees. But the important thing for people to remember is that you never want to be in a divorce case if you don't have to be. There's no way to verify really um, a lot of this data. There are a lot of people, prominent people, that are saying that their names are in this data, but yet their credit cards were hacked. I don't know if that's true or not. It could be, but there's really, just from looking at the data, there's no way to tell that. There's other things you would have to do. But the news media is full of stories now about suicides, about public shaming. Um, there are people that are probably getting accused of cheating because their name shows up in there, but it's another individual with the same name. It's causing a great deal of upheaval in relationships right now. And before anybody runs out to see a divorce lawyer, they really need to think about where this data came from. The fact that it may not be verifiable, uh, and the fact that it may not be evidence that somebody really was using this site. Uh, it could be that credit card information was hacked. It could be that it's a different person with the same name that just happens to live in the same city. But it could be that somebody really was on this site and using it to try to have an affair or succeeded in having an affair. And the sad thing about it is that if a marriage has got to end, it's probably better for everybody that it doesn't end in a very public way to embarrass either party. But that's happening because of this data breach. And one thing I would say is this is uncharted territory. We've never had anything like this happen in terms of a website like this. We've had hacked websites before. We've never had a hacked website like this with this many people publicly basically accused of cheating on their spouses. So I think it's very important for people not to jump to firm conclusions. If you're married, there should be an element of trust there. You should be willing to not jump to conclusions and have serious conversations about this, because just because somebody's name appears on this data that has been released is not necessarily the end of the story, and there's a lot more that you need to do before you decided to end your marriage because of it. So I hope that that gives you a little bit of insight over how the Alabama courts would view this, and hopefully you're not going to have to be dealing with any of these issues.